a Civ matchup, why don't we actually like just do something that's not mirror matchup? That sounds like a good idea, right? Because competitive, it might be cool for the stakes, but I know it can be quite boring, which is why I found one between Grubby and BCQT that isn't going to be China on China. It's going to be China versus Delhi. What up? Let's get into that one. So Grubby has been hard on the grind. As you can see, he's lad in the blue. He'll be playing Delhi. So Grubby has actually been raising the ranks really quickly here. Not really surprising. For those unaware of who Grubby is quite the Leviathan in RTS. This is like pedigree RTS. I mean, this guy was... I would say this guy was the GOAT of Warcraft 3. I only followed Warcraft, like, for a small quantity of time, but he was, like, one of the most notable names. Like, when I saw that he was playing Age of Empires 4 at the end of last year, I was like, yo, I remember that guy. I remember this guy. He was big. And he was. I mean, this guy earned, I think it was $300,000 playing competitively in the Warcraft scene. I mean, this guy was like kind of the undisputed champion. I think most people would agree. Like, if you actually whip open his Liquipedia and you have a look, right? I'll give you the rundown, guys. I'll give you the portfolio of Grubby. Cyber X Games 2004, first place. World Cyber Games 2004, first place. ESWC 2005, first place. BlizzCon 2005, first place. World Series of Video Games 2006, first place. World Cyber Games 2008, first place. Intel Extreme Masters Season 3, Global Challenge Seoul, first place. World Esports Games eStars 2009 King of the Game, first place. Like, these sound like, well, I've never heard these tournaments. That's because this is back in, like, the early 2000s, right? This is when esports was in this kind of infancy. And while he's definitely not won everything that's ever existed, like, that, there's still a lot of high credence, like, games there, right? BlizzCon comes to mind. The World Cyber Games, Cyber X Games, like, especially in, like, 2004 era, they were very notable events. And this guy is just, like, an incredibly talented player. It's impressive that after all these years, you know, like, after retiring, after kind of pulling away from like the esports side, he can just come back in and still like play up against the best players in Age of Empires 4 and in many cases handle them convincingly. So I think I've blown his horn enough. We should probably talk about Beastie. I've probably done this intro before, but it's just nice to kind of refresh every once in a while because I know not everyone like was a StarCraft nerd or Warcraft nerd. Beastie's mainly just been making his buck as a streamer for a long time, but he's definitely a well-known like StarCraft player. I think he played mainly around the early 2010 to 2015 era, I believe it was. And made a decent amount of money. I think he made around $30,000, and he's already proven that he can make money in Age of Empires 4, so definitely not washed up. We just like to call them washed up, by the way. You guys may have noticed I call people like the Muslim or Beastie washed up. That's just the meme joke we make about, you know, they retired. But you wouldn't believe that they've retired when you consider that Beastie, as an example, is sitting 14th on the leaderboard right now. He's been first place multiple times in the past. I think he also had a secondary account that he crawled up in the top 30. So two very talented players from a craft background just playing out in Age of Empires. It eats my heart out. I love to see it. I'm always excited to see these names that like have hung around. I was upset when we saw the loss of some of the names such as... I think the big one for me was Sio, kind of going back to Hearthstone. But it's cool to actually see these players just hanging around and just sticking tight with Age of Empires 4. But you know what? Enough time has passed. What great filler this was, because now we can talk about the openings, because we should be getting towards the point where tech ups are underway. And yes, it is for Grubby. Grubby going to be the first to go up, and there's going to be Dome of Faith, so nothing changing there. Interesting that we actually still aren't seeing any deviation. If I recall correctly in the patch notes, there was nothing specific about the issues with the Tower of Victory, which is the alternative Tech 2 landmark that you have as the Delhi. For those that aren't aware what the Tower of Victory does, because we literally never get to see it, the Tower of Victory is meant to give about 15% attack speed buff permanently to any unit that goes nearby, any infantry unit. And I say about because that's how it's written. And that's how it feels, because sometimes it just outright doesn't work with certain units. Other times it's not given the correct amount. It's meant to be around the 15% attack speed buffer. But for anyone who's been playing a decent amount of Age of Empires, you'll know by now, just looking at the way that the England network of castles functions, attack speeds are weird and don't work correctly. So a lot of the maths is actually incorrectly like done right now, and that would explain why the Tower of Victory just doesn't work. And it seems like it's still bugged because when I look at the patch notes, the first thing I was looking for through all the things that they fixed around research times was something to do with Tower of Victory, and there just wasn't anything in there. So fingers crossed, though, maybe Relic can get that sorted soon, because that's something that I've been a little bit concerned about with recently is, like, we came back after Christmas. I came back from working this big Dota 2 event. I was excited about the future of Age of Empires, like how they've been doing while I was away. I know that the big championship, that's cool. Oh, wow, Hera won. Someone else, actually, other than Marine Lord, won someone. That's cool. And then I look at the patch notes, and I'm like, oh. I was kind of hoping for more. So fingers crossed there's another patch coming in the next like month. I know that they should be releasing, they've been doing the, I think they've got the previews out of like the rank ladders, and they have been previewing some other features, such as kind of quality of life things. Like when you see these stat breakdowns, it will have like, for example, if you had techs for the villagers here, it'd be 6 plus the damage the techs add. So they are adding in things like that apparently. Really, another big thing I'm looking for is custom games. But I'm not going to turn this into tandem. I just want to say, like, overall, hopefully this gets fixed. I just think it's hard to fully measure the relevance of a Civ and what is viable for them when half of the things, like, just aren't viable simply not because they're crap or weak. They just don't work, right? Like, there are some that are just crap and weak, such as the Abbey of the Kings, which is the other tier 2 landmark that the English can build. But the Tower of Victory is a whole other pool of crap, basically. It just doesn't work, which is why everyone always, without doubt, without any hesitation, goes down with faith. I think even when it gets fixed, by the way, I don't think it's going to be good in 1v1s. I think the 15% perma attack speed buff sounds nice in theory, but I think like the saved eco early on in a 1v1 on these scholars is actually way too important to your early game economy. And I think it's going to be very hard to like offset, and I think the only relevance for Tower of Victory is probably going to be found in team games, right? 2v2s, 3v3s, that kind of stuff, where if it affects your allied units, then you can understand its intrinsic value to a wider game, a bigger game that has a lot more exposed resources and takes a longer time for you to get rushed in. Whereas these maps on 1v1s, just way too small. So Beastie opening up with the archer range, going into the Imperial Academy, so he is going to be going straight for the Juke Noob by the looks of it. It's the double archer range, so I think so. For those that are unaware or have been away for a while, the way this works is if you build both your landmarks as the Chinese, you upgrade your dynasty. He's going to be going to the secondary dynasty, which will give him a 35% decreased time in the production rate of villages, and then also give him access to the Juke Noob, which I call them the Juke Noobs because they're so dirty. It's like noob tubing from Call of Duty sometimes, which is a ridiculously effective unit against anything that doesn't have armor. And you're playing against Delhi. And Delhi's options in the early ages don't have armor. However, this could be a cool solution. Something I haven't got a chance to see so far, because we don't always get Juke Noob because it's very situational, is how effective the horsemen with their upgraded armor now, because remember that between tier 2 and 4, they all get +1 more armor than they used to, how effective they're actually going to be against Juke Noob. Which, so far, they're very effective against villagers from what I've been seeing out of Grubby. There's some nice, like, stab-ins. So, yeah, remember, that usually they used to have, like, 1 range resistance, which meant that it was quite the shellacking they got from the Juke Noob. But now, with this switch around, like, the Juke Noob, they do, I believe it's, I'm trying to recall off the top of my head, it's been so long. I think it's 5 damage in Burst of 3, or it's 4 damage in Burst of 3. 5 damage in Burst of 3 sounds quite broken, doesn't it? Either way, the way you have to think about this is, if it's doing 5 damage, for example, and you're doing 3 bursts, it means that you're losing out on 2 of that damage from each of the bursts, right? So you're actually losing 6 damage from your overall attack. Because burst, the way it works is that the resistance gets calculated against each hit of that burst. One interesting thing to think about, by the way, is that we actually still, to this day, we haven't seen any melee burst units, right? Or any, like, kind of signs of one coming. I'm kind of intrigued to see if that's something we'll get in the future. Wondering what that kind of looked like. Maybe like some kind of phalanx where they kind of stab forward 3 times or something like that. Make it an ability. Okay, I'm trying to turn this into a micro-intensive MOBA slash like RTS, aren't I? I should stop now. So Beastie didn't go for the Juke Noob in the end, by the way, because he did see these horsemen coming out. Instead, he just tries to Zerg the horsemen, and this is really effective. Look at what he's doing right now, Beastie. Oh, I don't think he's going to be able to stop this, though. He has to split up to attack different targets, so he's not going to get for the villager. The outpost will be built. And the spearmen are coming out, so Beastie will have to back up. This was a nice play, though. One of the big advantages of China, which makes them so painful to deal with, and I think genuinely, in my opinion, I think like everyone's so focused on Mongols, but this is definitely your second place best Civ, in my opinion, right now, is these supervising elements here, right? The Imperial Official makes this one building as effective as 3 stables. If you look across in Grubby's base, he only can afford 1 stable, right? He diversified like that. You see how he's got the racks, got the archery range, got the stable. He's covered all the bases because he has to. He can't just try and outmass the same unit. If he just builds it into Horsemen against China, he knows he's going to lose out because China has some efficiencies improvements in the early economy, right? Due to the fact that they get 20% additional drop-off when they supervise these drop-off buildings. As you can see, like, here you go. See, notice they're dropping off 12 instead of 10 each. And then on top of that, because he went into Song Dynasty, he's building these villages every 13 seconds. So he's just 10 times more efficient than you can ever think to be at this stage of the game. So Grubby actually has to play into the triangle of military production buildings so he can counter out the waves of whatever Beastie throws at him. Because he knows if he just went Horseman as well, there is no way at this stage in the game that he's going to be able to match it. Because not only is the economy of China a little bit more efficient, but he would also have to initially build 3 stables to match that count. And that is very pricey. I mean, remember, folks, that's 150 wood each in your early game economy. That's a huge find and a huge ask. Beastie now pivoting. This is what I was waiting to see. This is where it gets a little bit troublesome for Grubby. Grubby right now, his composition does not handle Zhugnu. Like, Horseman Zhugnu counters everything he wants to do. He builds 3 types of units and gets countered by 2. This is the situation he finds himself in. It's not a comfortable one to be in. And you see the Zhugnu. Yeah, it was 4 damage. I was about to say, 5 sounded way too broken when I said it in my mind originally. So the way this works, 4 damage, 3 bursts, so 12 damage. But you can see these spears, they have 1 resistance, so they're actually minusing 3 of that damage. They're taking 9 per shot. And big mistake with the Zhugnu there. One of the big weaknesses of Zhugnu, by the way, is if you don't reach critical mass and you ever have to run away, look at the movement speed, 1.12. It's the slowest unit involved in this combat. Archers at 1.25, Spearmen at 1.25, ramping that up even further to I think it's about 1.38 when they charge. And then, of course, there's the Horsemen that always just blitz it around at 1.88 movement speed. So you have to protect these Zhugnu. You can't ever be forced to run away. This is a cool idea right here from Beastie, though. Oh, they're both going blind, though. This wasn't intended to intercept. So they're rapping on each other, and it's going to be a raid straight in. Grubby needs to back off with the Villies, but it's too late. Is he going to lose one? Oh, he just about gets away with it. And the Spearman is going to hold the Horseman in place for the moment. New Spear's going to move across. That's going to cost you dearly. Beastie loses 2 in the blink of an eye. And this is where Horsemen, like, this is where they're meant to be balance checked, right? Like, a lot of people were concerned that Horseman, the Zergy factor, it was kind of maybe broken, it wasn't reasonable at all. I think, actually, I was fine with this buff to the ranged armor of Horsemen ever since they buffed the damage you do to cavalry, right? These spears do 28 damage per poke. These Horsemen have 125 health. Think about the actual eco cost of that. Horsemen are 100 food, 20 wood. Spearmen, much more reasonable, 60 food, 20 wood. Yes, they're kind of immobile, but the whole point is actually, like, if Horsemen ever misstep, I think people put a little bit too much credence on this movement speed of 1.88. Look how quickly look at this guy, 1.56. I don't know why I said 1.38. You see how quickly you move initially when you're going for a charge. It's a effective tool at gap closing. It means you can very easily punish a Horseman spammer for slightly misstepping. Sacred Site needs to be decapped here. Beastie can't allow himself to get choked out like this. It's all 3 Sacred Sites capped currently for Grubby. I say that. Actually, no, he failed to just about complete it. The Horsemen need to just kind of hang around, but not in range of the outpost. It's kind of frustrating right now because he's only got Horsemen. He has no way of sieging through these structures. These structures are effectively padded because they've all been upgraded to be 2,000 HP. I like this play out of Grubby. This is a really cool play. I think I've seen a lot of people try to rush the outpost, but they never actually prioritize getting the upgrades in the outpost. The outposts aren't well protected. In this situation, it's very hard with just Horsemen to rush through, and Zhugnu do nothing either. I think the only play you have if you're Beast is you need to drop a Blacksmith, and you need to look into Siege Engineering. Siege Engineering, with this many Zhugnu, you could easily just ram into your opponent's base. Like, his Horseman count isn't impressive anymore. He's actually sidestepped out of it, and it's mainly just Spears, which means your Zhugnu will shred them. See if he makes that play. More of his Horsemen being picked off. Still no Scout Vision. I think this is a little bit of a whoopsie-daisy. I think if you want to play around this Stealth Forest, you're playing on Lipany, right? This central Stealth Forest is a big deal. The fact you're playing into every time blind, you don't know how many Horsemen are waiting right in front of you, right? Waiting to touch dips with these spears. Like, you could run into 6, 7, maybe 8 of these Horsemen, and all of a sudden half your Zhugnu are just dead. So this is a very weird gamble by Beastie. I think a Scout could have offset this risk entirely. There it is, 14 minutes in. Sacred Site victory condition is going to be triggered. How triggered is Grubby going to be by this, though? It's surprise time. Oh, he's trying to dangle himself a little. And there it is. He gets the vision on the side. So well played. Beastie doesn't expose his horseman, gets eyeballs on, and all of a sudden the spearmen are going to have to retreat. But Beastie, there it is. That's what he needs. The double ram. This is the play. He has to be fast on this. Remember, Grubby, he teched up into castle and also has all the sacred sites. So Beastie has about 5 minutes to end this game, or it's just going to be him in the grave. And he won't be dragging anyone down with him. And a delicate point as well. Look what Beastie's having to do. He's having to just transition fully into farmlands. These horsemen are still raiding, but they don't see him at the back. Oh my god, I can't believe it. Look at how many villagers are here. 4 horsemen would obliterate this. 2 horsemen, less so. But it's going to be some decent damage. And Beastie's just fixated right now. He's too busy looking across at the raid that he's attempting. I say raid. This isn't a raid. This is an outright slayer. This is an attempt to siege and kill. Wow. Oh my god. He just turns on him. I mean, I respect it. In this situation, remember, he went for textiles, so this is actually very effective. Not enough players research this, and I've definitely complained about it time and time again. Oh my god. Yeah, guys, they both went for textiles, but it only works well for one side. And the Tower War Elephant's out now, and this is problem territory for Zhugnus. Look what your damage is at. You're doing what, 5 damage? And it has 5 missile resistance. You do no damage to any of these. Even the man-at-arms, they take a tickling. I don't think Beastie can do this anymore. I think he missed his timing. Oh my god, Grubby. The Sanctity play into the sacred sites has paid off. And all of a sudden, Beastie is a bit lost. He needs to get his tech up. He needs to look for a buffer point back into this game. But remember, even on top of that, he still needs to address these sacred sites, which are still under the control of Grubby. And the racks are already prepped. And he needs to be fast about this. Beastie just gathering every little bit he can. Trying to scale up. But he has to remember the elephant's already on the way. No pressure, son, but you are one mistake away from being out of this game. Zhugnus will fully back up. And this is the risk of Zhugnus that we talked about. It's very much an all-in play. Really, when you go for Zhugnus, it's to offset someone's ridiculous early aggression, or it's to set up a ram rush to end the game fast. And he hasn't achieved either, really. He didn't really stop what Grubby was doing because he wasn't ready with the rams to go in and actually punish him for that early composition. And instead, Grubby fully gets away with it, and now he's dropping the forward walls because look what he built. It's the compound of the defender. And there's no way to stop him. And that's the problem. Tech up now complete. Beastie needs the solution fast. He needs to get some springles out. He needs to address the Mangonel more than anything else. And then you can also poke and prod at these Tower War Elephants from far away. These War Elephants that are quite frustrating right now. And spears being built. Spears that need to be fully upgraded. It's going to take a little bit of time. In the meantime, the 40-year base is going to fall. Stonewall Tower about to be complete. Barbican Sun's next to be targeted by the Mangonels. One of them is currently AFK. Remember, Grubby, there's no pressure for him to like immediately siege into the base. He just needs to damage the outskirts because Beastie is the one who has to come out and play due to those sacred sites and still unable to do so. And I just don't see the play right now. I mean, he's building the spears, but you're up against man-at-arms now, as well as the Tower War Elephants. And also 3 Mangonels. You need springles. Without springles, you can't win this. And here come those man-at-arms we were talking about. Oh my, they're in the back. Here to say hello. That's going to bait his entire military force all the way to the back of the base. I don't think Grubby wanted to be there, actually. Oops. And Zhugnus, they might not do that much damage, but in this quantity against the few man-at-arms that are affected, the problem is his base is not defended now. And that was my concern about being dragged all the way back there. They're in. New wall tower being built. Mangonels rolling up quick. 3 Tower War Elephants now, and they're reaching ramming speed quick. This archery range isn't going to last long. Your army isn't going to last long. The spearmen trickling in is not the way, my friend. I think Grubby's done it. I just don't see how Beastie does this. He needed the springles, and it's going to be a nest of bees first as well on the front. I don't know if that's going to help you at all. I mean, you need 3 springles, I feel like, to be comfortable with this, and then you need to poke and prod at the War Elephants. One of these War Elephants is low, but more of them are coming in. Springles now being built by Grubby as well, and it looks like Beastie is just up against the ropes and ready to be KO'd. And the springle, no, the Mangonel showing, oh my god! Beastie, that should have been 10 times worse, but it's still enough damage done, and with the War Elephants in range, they can just keep on chasing, and it's going to be enough to tap him out. GG's going to be cool. Grubby, No waiting around. Hits his Castle Age and plows straight across the map. A nice attempt by Beastie with the early aggression, but it needed to be faster. I love the play into the Zhugnu, looking to ram in. But the fact is that the moment Grubby has control of all of those sites, you have to be going. You already have to be in his base ramming. Otherwise, the gold trickle coming through is too powerful for the Delhi, and they will quickly outscale you into castle, which is exactly what happened here. Phenomenally done by Grubby to take the win.